Hello! And welcome on your live afternoon game drive. My name is James Jeandré and you are with WildEarth TV. Now, you're on a live game drive. I'm not in fact a clown, I'm just behaving slightly like one at the moment. I was trying to get into that termite mound behind us that you can see there. Can you see it, Jeandré? Can you see it now? Can you see it now? Right. I was trying to get into that termite mound there and make like a warthog, but I became nervous of snakes, and so I just hid behind it because we didn't have much time for me to excavate further. Anyway, here we are. We are sitting on Arethusa currently, and for those of you who don't know, Arethusa is a 600 hectare portion of area that we traverse. We also traverse 900 hectares to the east of us called Djuma, and that little section of land is in a much greater area called the Sabi Sands of 60,000 hectares, which in turn falls into a much greater area of the Greater Kruger National Park, which is 2.2 million hectares, which in turn falls into the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. Now, this morning I was asked how many lions there are left in this area, and I couldn't answer. And apparently, as of 2012, which is the latest figures I could find, there were about 2,300 lions in the area. We don't think that they've changed substantially since then. It's a pretty healthy population of lions, and so there we go. That's how many lions there are in the area. Just to let you know, the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park does in fact extend into Mozambique and Zimbabwe, 3 countries, and I'm just negotiating my way around a couple of Catanarigum spinosa bushes, the spiny bone apple, and it is spiny and very painful on the back of my small legs. Like I say, I am James Jeandré, and on camera today we have got the inimitable Jeandré, who's got a bandana. Well, where's your bandana from, Jeandré?
The shops.
The shops, yes. Well, it's very fashionable. Jeandré is a very fashionable fellow. And on the other vehicle, we have got Scott and Bryan, who are currently trying to track down the Nkuhumas pride, a pride of 4 females, 2 sub-adult females, and 1 young male, who provide the bulk of our lion viewing and are in a state of turmoil, which I'm sure Scott will tell you about later on. So, and in the final control, lest I forget, we have 3 ladies, Louise on Director 1, Tara Dale sitting next to her, and D2, Director 2, the inimitable Nikki Alston, and of course Eugene in his little white bucky driving around trying to make sure that we don't lose any signal like we have the last 2 drives. Difficult situation Eugene finds himself in. This weather does play havoc with our signal. Anyway, here we are, and hopefully live for the rest of the drive. My plan this afternoon, and therefore your plan, unless you tell me otherwise, and you can tell me otherwise if you like on Twitter, #SafariLive, or questions at WildEarth.tv. If you're on the email, you're welcome to tell me what you think the plan should be. Jeandré, quickly look over here. There is a little fork-tailed drongo. Anything can happen out here. And our plan wasn't necessarily to come and find a fork-tailed drongo. The plan is to come and find a little male leopard that we saw here today called Sindile. Well, he was called Sindile. He's now called Madiba. And so that's who we've come to find. His mother, Shadow, provides a huge amount of leopard viewing for us. And that is the fork-tailed drongo, who has been attracted, I think, by the fact that this vehicle is off-road and probably disturbed a few insects, and that's what the drongo is looking to try and eat. What a wonderful sighting. So like I say, fully interactive safari. We'll be with you for the next 3 hours, and please feel free to send your comments and questions. We love to hear from you. #SafariLive if you're tweeting like that drongo does sometimes, or questions at WildEarth.tv if you prefer the longer form. Right, I think that's it for the drongo. We're going to reverse out here and then drive down towards the airstrip at Arethusa and see if we can't pick up on young Madiba. I'm hoping that he'll be there. I'm also hoping there won't be too many other cars there. because we are not alone on this wilderness. And Christine, thank you for you. Apparently you were waiting for me to poke my head out of that hole. I did think about it, but I don't think even I am small enough to fit in that hole. And so I just had to make a rushed plan to hide behind the termite mound. Initially, Jeandré wanted me up a marula tree, and I misunderstood him when I stopped the car. He grossly overestimated my climbing skills. Little clearing here. And Elizabeth, I'm very pleased that you find me slightly amusing. I'm sorry, Jeandré, that was very slow of me. A yellow-billed hornbill. Thank you, Elizabeth. I do try my best. So we're not far from where we saw him this morning, but like I say, there are lots of people around, so I will just have to get hold of them on the radio when we get a bit closer, and then we can, I'm sure during the course of the afternoon we'll be able to get in there if he's been found again. Otherwise we'll find him ourselves. The weather is probably still sitting at around, I'd say, a maximum of 16 degrees. So not warm at all, and the wind is blustery, and apparently this front that you can see over the top of us is going to last for the next 3 or 4 days. Jeandré also says to me that he's checked the long-term forecast and that it's going to rain on Saturday. I am suspicious of that, but we'll see. Maybe 4 or 5 millimeters. There's a big bird up there, Jeandré. There are 2 big birds. I think those are African hawk eagles. Just going to drive very slowly up. I think they're African hawk eagles, and they like to hunt ground-dwelling birds like guinea fowl and francolin. They hunt in pairs. Exactly what they are. Stop a little as well. I'm not going to start the engine again. Let's see how close Jigger will roll, because they will fly when we go under them. Beautiful African hawk eagles. And you can hear the squirrels. I'm not sure if you can hear them, but there's some squirrels there alarm calling at them. Very upset. They will eat squirrels as well, of course. Just go a little bit closer. Oh, they're going to fly. You hear the squirrels. Very cross. And they don't pose a huge danger to a squirrel. I mean, I don't think that they kill many squirrels, but the squirrel will certainly recognize them as a predator. All right, they're going to fly now. So get ready with your screen grab and see if you can't catch them with their magnificent wingspan fully extended. Here we go. I think they're going to fly. They may just put a dropping or two on our heads as we go underneath. There we go. Wonderful birds. They're sitting just up ahead in front of us. See if we can't get next to them. See, they won't want to fly in weather like this. It's really not great for a big heavy bird to fly in. No, there we go. And as they fly, you can hear different birds alarm calling as they fly over them, and they notice these voracious aerial predators flipping past them. I don't think they're in much danger today though. Normally how they hunt is one of them will hunt from above and sort of attract the attentions of the prey, and the other one will come in from low down and bam. Oh dear, my ear seems to have come out. Jeandré, if I'm being hailed, let me know. Must be able to multitask as a presenter. Go, back in. Right, I'm just going to get an update on the radio now and see how far away or if we're able to go in there. Afternoon stations, I'm nearing that position from this morning, struggling with the radio. Can I have a vehicle update from the Madiba sighting? Copy, thanks. Will you keep me posted? I'm on my way there. Okay. I copied that, thank you. We'll just keep me posted and I'll take first. Stand by. Great stuff, thanks a lot. Okay, so the update is that he's still in the same place as he was this morning. There are 3 people there, I'm afraid, but they will move out for us eventually, and we will then go in and spend some time with magnificent Sindile. In the meantime, we will view these impala that Jeandré has cleverly spotted. Despite his fact that his eye is welded to the camera, he is still spotting wildlife. Well done, Jeandré. So we've got some rather startled looking impala sitting in the woodland here, wondering what on earth we could possibly have stopped for. And you can see they have an unusual color on them for this time of the day. Normally by now the fur on their backs is firmly attached or firmly flattened to allow for sort of more effective heat exchange. And at the moment what they're trying desperately to do is to stay warm. And so they fluff up their hair, and that traps more air underneath it, and they stay a bit warmer. Many of these females will now be pregnant and starting to show. So although you might see the hips on some of them from the nutritional distress that they will experience inevitably at this time of year, you will see that their bellies on many of the females are quite full, and they seem to be swelling day by day. They will, of course, give birth around about the end of November in this area, so in just over 2.5 months' time. So they've been pregnant for almost 5 months now. Very graceful, beautiful antelope. Hugely underrated, I feel. We're just going to sneak slightly forward, if that's all right, Jeandré. Go. And those birds you can hear, the zip, 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 zip. Those are the oxpeckers that clean off the ectoparasites that like to live on the impala, sucking out their blood and transferring diseases to them. Parasites and disease are the greatest threat for any animal, including us. And the incredible lengths to which our bodies have evolved to deal with parasites, some of which we don't even know about, and various infections and things, quite astonishing. The immune systems that mammals and many other animals, of course, have developed are just astonishing. Just give you a sense of the atmosphere that we've got going here. It is windy. It's not, it's chilly. It's sort of 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, I think, which is probably around 57 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So not warm, and a chilly breeze with this front that's blowing over. That smell of petrichor, see, I remember, Jeandré, that smell of petrichor from this morning, which is the smell that comes off the earth after the rains. Thank you, Jess, for telling me that. The smell of petrichor was dissipated, and now there's just a bit of sort of dustiness in the air from the wind. And every so often you get a subtle smell of a little bit of aniseed maybe, or some sage, and also, if you're really lucky, if you go past a flowering knobthorn, you get a little bit of a smell, sweet smell from the knobthorn trees, but very subtle. Impala seems to have a shiner. Yeah, that one just stuck its head up. It's got a very dark stripe under her eye. And Lady Macbeth, you're absolutely correct. Just because impala are common, it doesn't mean we shouldn't spend some time enjoying them. And they are, you're absolutely right, they are stunning. They're elegant. They have the most clever strategy for survival. Their breeding strategy is such that they all will deliver their lambs within 2 weeks of each other, which is just amazing when you consider it. In the Kruger Park, they all mate during the dark phase of the moon in May. Let me just say that again. They all mate during the dark phase of the moon in May. So because of that sort of environmental trigger that they all respond to, what happens is that they all birth their lambs within 2 weeks of each other. And what that does, of course, is it floods the market with little babies. And those little babies are then, I'm afraid, 50% of them get end up on the dinner table, if you like, over the course of the first year. But then after that, you can see from the abundance of impala, they do really, really well. Now we've got an interesting question. Why we follow this herd of some pregnant females, some males, a mixed herd. Lisa, you'd like to know if the condition of the adult makes a difference to the fetus, and I passed you right behind you, sorry. Lisa, it absolutely makes a huge difference, as does the condition of the bush, but it has given rise to this ridiculous notion, and it is ridiculous, that an impala is able to hold back giving birth for some months until conditions are favorable. And that is definitely not the case. So yes, of course, just like with human beings, if the mother's nutritional status is not a tip-top condition, then obviously it will affect the fetus. But they're pretty good at dealing with the dry season. They're able to browse and graze, and so they probably deal with the dry season better than most, especially if there's pumped water around, which of course in the Sabi Sands you can't go more than 2 kilometers without finding a waterhole of some sort. So this is an ideal habitat for impala. Now, here's an interesting one that I've posed before and I haven't got an answer to it. And I don't think anybody on the Twitterverse gave me an answer. Why do you think an impala is brown? Is that rich chestnut color, beautiful chestnut color, when it's clearly very obvious, I think, in that gray vegetation. If the vegetation was green and thick, they could just hide behind it. But in that vegetation where they are now, there's no camouflage advantage to being that rich chestnut brown color. Waterbuck, you can hardly see moving through that area. You can see when zebra move through an area like that, it does play tricks with your eyes, so you can kind of understand the stripes. Duiker are also perfectly invisible in there. Kudu also to a certain extent because of their stripes and their slightly darker gray color. Nyala, same thing because of their stripes. But although Nyala also tend to have a rich, the females certainly tend to be that rich chestnut color, and I don't know why. And I wonder if anybody has any plausible answers to that one. Ginny, you say that you've noticed that the impala are not flicking their tails. Ginny, I think some of them certainly are. But remember that the tail is they may be doing it less than normal, but remember that the tail is a fly swatter more than anything else. And on a cold day like this, there are simply fewer flies. And so the necessity to wag your tail and try and flick the flies off your bottom becomes that much less. So if you watch them, you will see the odd one flicking its tail, but Jenny definitely less than normal, and I'm sure that's because there's simply not a lot of flies around. Flies, of course, are totally ectothermic, which means they derive their heat from the atmosphere, and they don't store it like we do or like impala do. And so when it's chilly and windy like this, they struggle to get off the ground. Oh, I see. Right. Now, Donna, in South Carolina, you make a very good point, of course, that the rangers here love to have a first impala spotting competition. So come the end of November, we'll all be scouring the land for the first lamb. And it's always a good thing to be the first one to see. Just listening a little bit to the radio to make sure that I don't miss out on magnificent Madiba. But so far, it all is quiet. Right, shall we drive slowly along, Jeandré, or would you like to spend further time with the impala? You say we can go. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. a really nice impala sighting. Shall forge ahead and see what else we can find. Looking for signs of spring, and there are some signs of spring right there. In the marula tree there, you can see it sprouted new leaves. Wonderful. It's always exciting to see the first signs. I think there are a few marula trees that are in leaf or starting to go into leaf. And while we're looking at the leaf there and talking about spring, and we were chatting about impalas and their lambs, Marjorie, you wanted to know how old a female impala is when she first conceives. Marjorie, they're sexually mature by about 2.5 years. So what you probably find is that in their 3rd year, they will give birth. So if they're born in November, come November 2 years later, they'll be coming into sort of their first estrus by that May. So 2.5 years, they can probably breed. And they can possibly breed just about every year for some of them. If conditions are correct, that's what will happen. Right. Just move slowly down the road. Just listening to the radio. That's why my face goes blank every so often. And we don't want to get too close to the sighting and disturb it. So I think we're going to do a little loop around the place. So just down the road here is where we found young Madiba this morning. We're now on the main Arathusa access. And Arathusa, in case you were wondering, is a commercial safari lodge, and there are lots of them around here. They play a massively important role in conservation. Without them, of course, no one would pay for this conservation land. So, some interesting answers to the question of why impala are the color that they are. James, Brandy, Ginny, and Gerda, various different answers. Gerda, I'm going to start with yours, which I think was that God only had brown paint left when he birthed them. Well, I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. Who knows? Certainly, though, that does bring up the interesting fact that they are what we call a living fossil. So it means that they haven't changed for millions of years. And there are very few animals that can lay claim to something like that. Then, a couple of comments that I'm not really convinced about. And I'll tell you why. Some of you say to make them... we can go to the leopard now. Sorry about that, Jeandré. Are you all right? It's a fairly tight turn. So, you wanted to say basically that some people, that they're that color to help them camouflage themselves when they're having their babies. See, I don't think they're very camouflaged. I'm to help them hide in the long grass. Again, I don't think that color camouflages them. You watch as we go into summertime. That brown color, there's not a lot of it around. So if you want to be completely camouflaged here, you should either be sort of grayish brown, which is what this vegetation is, or you must be shorter than the vegetation, or you must, I don't know, you need to have stripes like a zebra perhaps, or spots like a leopard. But that chestnut brown to me is not a camouflage color. So I'm not convinced by the arguments that it's to try and disguise them. And we had a comment also from one of those fine 4 people who said that their main defensive mechanism is to run away. Well, that is certainly one of their main defense mechanisms, but why make yourself more obvious is the question. All right, now while we're making our way into the sighting of Madiba, we're going to hand you over to Scott. He'll tell you what he's doing. I know he's tracking the lions, but I don't know what's happened with that. And so we'll pop across to him and I'll see you just now, hopefully with a little spotted cat.
Hello everyone, and welcome on board the hunt down for the Nkuhumas pride. We are searching for them. They've moved from where they are this morning, and Bryan and myself have been trying to work out where they've gone. It looks like they've headed south towards Treehouse Waterhole, maybe to come and quench their thirst. And we didn't have time to follow up on foot all of their footprints, but their tracks certainly did come south from where we had them this morning. For those of you who weren't with us, they had been, well, we managed to find them and we could see that they had made a kill. They were covered in blood and probably an impala. They weren't too full-bellied, something probably quite small. And it was only after about 2 hours of trying to track them with a lot of help from Aubrey, one of the other guides. So it looks like we have got our work cut out for us again this afternoon. If some of you may be joining for the first time, my name is Scott and it's wonderful to have you on board. And there's not only me on this vehicle, I've got Bryan on camera. So like I say, we think the lions are somewhere out to our left. They have been approaching, according to their tracks, somewhere towards Treehouse Dam. And maybe you guys can help us and search this area, even though the bush is quite open at the moment and there's not much vegetation. The lion's camouflage helps them to blend in very well. And maybe you guys will be able to see something that Bryan and myself have overlooked. Nothing much to see there, I don't think. Well, hang on. There we go. What's that? Awesome! You can faintly see a lion there, and they must have just arrived. I thought I saw one walking through the shot. It looks like one's sitting there. So let's go and take a closer look. Would you believe it? Thankfully, after spending so much time this morning, I thought we were going to have the same problem this afternoon. But it turns out that luck is on our side. Phew! What a relief. And the good news is it looks like 1 or 2 of them may be on the move. And typically we spend a lot of time with these animals sleeping, so it'll be great to actually spend some time with them moving around and hopefully, if we're lucky, getting to see them hunting. Because there's a waterhole here, there's a strong chance that there may be some animals coming down to drink, so it's a perfect spot for them to try and set up an ambush. try and loop right ahead of them. They are just off to our left now. And some of them appear to be looking very intently down in this direction. I'm not sure what they could possibly see. That's great, there's one right here. They're looking off very intently down to our right. Wonderful. Now, one thing I didn't mention about this morning is that we only saw 6 members of this pride, which means one was missing. It may have just been lying up nearby. Hard to tell though. And who knows, possibly one of them has been caught out by one of the Birmingham boys who's up in Buffelshoek, which is where these lion were last. Junior was present, so it's just one of the lioness that's missing. And it looks like she still has a pink tinge of blood on her coat from her kill this morning. Look at her body language. What has she seen out there? Oh, it's an impala. It's very, very far off, but there is an impala in the distance, and look at those beady eyes. Very, very focused. Look at this. This is what we want to see. And something that we get to see very rarely. Lions on the hunt. And the wind is blowing straight from the impala towards the lion. So the wind is in the lion's favor. Welcome back, everyone, and thankfully you haven't missed anything. And I'm just going to ask Bryan to pan across and show you what's happening here. There's a multitude of game coming down to the dam, mainly impala. Just to give you an idea of where they are, it's just down behind us there. You can see a wildebeest and lots of impala running down to drink. Sadly though, the lions aren't really in the best spot at the moment. And they've got a lot of work to do in order to get into the right position to ambush this prey. At least you've got an idea of where the dam is and where the prey is, and now you know where the lion are. Now, even though lion are incredibly good hunters, they're incredibly fast and powerful, their prey have evolved and adapted over many, many years to escape being caught by them. So it's not easy business. And the prey will also be on especially high alert today because it's windy. And in these windy conditions, prey animals will be scared. They cannot hear predators approaching. Even visually, because plants are blowing in the wind, they can disguise the predator's approach. Look at how poised and focused she is. Now there's only 2 lioness that are kind of up front. Look at this. I think she's going to make a hash of this. See what happens. Welcome back and apologies for the signal issues. But you haven't missed anything, and let's just keep our hopes up here. Like I said, most of the pride is quite far back and sadly aren't really in a position to encompass this prey. But there still is a chance. Something may go well for the Nkuhumas, but I must say I feel that the little one down there, I didn't even see her. Now they only starts like. Welcome back everyone, and one lioness that I actually didn't see came charging forward. It was a terrible maneuver on her part, and she's blown it for the rest of the pride. And now you will be able to, once I've stopped, see some impala laughing at her. So you didn't miss anything, and I'm just gonna try and find a good spot to stop where you can see both the impala and the lioness. The lioness is slinking back to the rest of the pride, and most of the impala have disappeared, but you may be able to hear the snorting alarm calls of the impala. And they're somewhere in that bush, shouting their thoughts back to the lioness that came charging, and she had absolutely no chance. She came from so far away in the complete open, possibly a youngster. But wasn't that exciting? And just great to see the body language and intensity of that one lioness's eyes when she's locked focus on those impala for the first time. Yeah, we might be able to get you a visual of these impala alarming. And off they go. Now, that's fairly normal occurrence, and in terms of predators being able to catch their prey, they only succeed about 10 to 20% of all of their hunts. So it's no major surprise, and I'm glad we just got to at least see that initial intense action of the lioness stalking along the ground a little bit with those beady eyes of her locked on the targets. I've lost track of which was the lioness that blew the hunt for everyone, but it could have been this one. Possibly one of the younger ones who didn't get to feed on much of last night's very small kill that they made. Junior evidently got most of it, as he had the fullest belly this morning. You can see her kind of flicking her tail upwards there. She was doing the same thing, or at least the lioness who blew the hunt was doing the very same thing as she walked off, flicking her tail in frustration. Well, good prospects, and the amount of time we usually spend with these animals sleeping is very lopsided, and we don't get to see much hunting action or even them moving around during the day. So very, very happy that we are in this scenario, and I'm sure we are going to get to see them try hunting again. There's a herd of buffalo bulls that often come and drink at this water, or they have been over the recent last few days. And within that herd of buffalo, there's some really old and weak members that may provide the perfect prey for this pride. And I think after all the excitement of that potential hunt, most of the pride is going to regroup with the other members who weren't as actively involved. So what we're going to do is also just reposition and get you a little bit closer to the action. Squeeze tight, everyone. There's thorns on the left, and the tree on the right we don't have to worry about too much, but there's also some stuff above us. Oh. Good, everyone through. Very good. I really would love to see all 7 of them here. Maybe we just missed one of the animals this morning, one of the pride members. But it's not looking too promising, and I wonder what's happened to her. You can just see Junior over my shoulder here, and he's a little bit distant from the rest of the pride, not looking too happy, but take a closer look. And he's got a very funny expression on his face. Maybe he's not enjoying this cold weather. Shame. Still a tinge of pink on his coat, but certainly not as much as this morning. And they probably finished their kill sometime just before we managed to find them. And that's why so many of them were still covered in blood. But already now they look to be a lot cleaner. So he's a young male within the pride, and there were 6 females, 6 lioness last time this pride was seen, but only 5 this morning. The youngest of which just lay down on the top right. And then there's 2 older lioness. And 2 in between. And as you can see, a lot of them are taking this time to groom themselves. And for those of you who were watching the sunrise safari, you'll notice they're already looking a lot cleaner than then. Last station, I'm getting a lot of static through from you. Can't copy anything. So the radio seems to be giving us a hard time at the moment. All the tech stuff has been really tricky over the last few days. And poor old Eugene, our tech wizard, has been running around frantically all day solving one problem, which often leads to, it's literally as he finishes one problem, another one pops up. So apologies for that, but we are doing our best to try and resolve all these issues. And at least we've got this wonderful sighting to enjoy in the meantime, regardless of all the tech issues. Well, I certainly couldn't have asked for a better start to the safari on this vehicle this afternoon, and it sounds like you had a great start with James. I'm quite jealous you got to see the 2 African hawk eagles. It's been quite some time that since I've seen them, and now James has found something else that I'm quite jealous about. So enjoy, and you're going to hop onto his vehicle. We're not going to go anywhere. We're going to stay with this pride of lion, and we'll be sure to call you if any further action unfolds.
Well, everybody, welcome back to Jigger, and the most important part of Jigger at the moment is that it is parked next to a termite mound on which you can see a young male leopard aged roughly 1 year. He is exposing his rather spectacularly furry belly, and that's because he's full. It looks to me like he ate something last night. I know his mother was around yesterday, and so perhaps she got him something, although, as I said this morning, he has become something of an accomplished hunter in his own right. He has not moved since this morning. Well, I mean, he's rolled over a few times, but he certainly hasn't done much else. But it is such a privilege to spend time around him. He's still got a very young face compared with the adult male leopard that we see around here. And as most cats like to do, he is doing not a great deal, especially with a belly that large and full of meat. Now remember, one of the reasons that cats do have to sleep as much as they do is because they digest a huge amount of protein. Now, protein is expensive for the body to digest. It's not easy. And it also is not particularly rich in energy. So to process it, A, and B, then to derive energy from it is not easy. And so the body of these cats needs to rest as much as they do. They don't do it just because they're lazy. Look at him rubbing his little face there. He looks just like a house cat. So much about his activities do make you want to go over there and cuddle him a little, but I assure you that would be an extremely poor idea. See his beautiful little pink nose. Just get Jeandré to go in on his little nose. Now the leopard's nose, of course, is different from that of a lion. It's used for the same thing, of course, that is to smell, and also good for aging them in lions, not so good in leopards. Leopards, that he will probably have a pink nose for the rest of his days. Some of them are born with black noses. Those are the two general nose colors in leopards, but lions, of course, are all born with pink noses. And they will eventually, by age 6, those noses will turn black. But a leopard, that is very different. Now, we had a discussion earlier about the impala and their color and why they are the color that they are. Jeandré and I had a debate amongst ourselves. We didn't really come up with a particularly robust theory, I don't feel. But the other, while we're looking at this leopard, look at the color that he's got on his belly. It's extremely obvious. And you tell me why you think it is that a leopard has got white and black on his belly when those are the two most obvious colors that you can find out here. Why would he have such an obviously colored belly? The other interesting thing here is how a leopard will not sleep like a lion does. I know you've been enjoying a wonderful lion sighting with Scott, a failed hunter, I believe. Just seeing lions on the hunt is a tremendous privilege and great fun. But you will notice, I'm sure, very shortly that those lions will go to sleep and do pretty much what Madiba is doing now. And the interesting thing, though, is that when he sleeps, he doesn't sleep like a lion does. A lion will sleep like the dead. These leopards are always up. So every so often he will lift his head up, look around, put his head down. If he hears a disturbance in the grass, he'll open his eyes and look. They do not sleep with the same soundness that lions do. And the reason for that is clearly because they don't have nearly the same amount of confidence, and the threats that face them are obviously that much more because they're just smaller, they don't live in groups, and they fall pretty close to the bottom of the major predator hierarchy here. So, while we talk about the predator hierarchy here, I think it's quite interesting because we do see 3 of the major members of that predator hierarchy. There are 5 major predators out here: lions, hyenas, wild dogs, leopards, and cheetahs. We see all of them from time to time, but the main ones we see are the ones that we've seen today, all 3 of them that we've seen today. We had lions this morning, we had a spectacular hyena sighting with Scott this morning, and of course we had young Madiba sitting over there on the termite mound. Now, the predator hierarchy goes as follows. It goes lions, then hyenas, then wild dogs, then leopards, then cheetahs. And leopard and cheetah tend to fall sort of below the rest by quite a margin. Lions well above the top, although in areas where there are lots of hyenas, there will be some kind of conflict over who sits in the number 1 position. And the purpose or the reasons for these are pretty clear and pretty obvious once you think about them. Lions are the biggest, obviously. That's a huge predicator of your hierarchy out here. In fact, it's the major one. Then they live in groups, so they can take a risk. Now, that group structure means that they can risk being physically hurt, which something like a leopard and a cheetah cannot. If they get injured, they don't eat again, and then they die, obviously, because none of us can survive without eating, and maybe some yogis in India. But other than them, no one can survive without eating. So lions and hyena, bigger, live in groups, and they will slightly be dominant over wild dogs, which also live in groups, which means they can take the odd risk. But leopards and cheetahs, they can't take risks. And I did see, between the 2 of them, I saw some footage the other day that came out of Ngala, where I used to work, just up the road. And
It was footage of a leopard, male leopard, having killed a cheetah, took it up a tree and ate it. So cheetah are well at the bottom of the hierarchy and leopard just off the bottom. I think it's quite interesting to see how they all fit in. And that's the reason that a leopard will never sleep as soundly as a lion will. And as I say that, of course, he's fallen so fast asleep he hasn't had a twitch in the last 3 minutes. I think eventually he will wake up and hopefully do something exciting. He's been so confiding over the last little while. I also think it's quite interesting that on a day like today, he's not lying up in thick bush. He's exposed himself here in this kind of a blustery day. It's cold, it's not very nice out. But he's exposed himself on the top of this termite mound, and I find that quite strange. I don't know why he wouldn't have gone to some thick bush. But he does love termite mounds, as does his mother. They both love termite mounds very much. A very nice little question from Gracie, aged 8 in Ohio. Gracie, do I think his paws are getting bigger? Gracie's paws are definitely getting bigger. Just like your feet are getting bigger, so his paws are getting bigger. He's bigger than his mum now, you know, and when we look at his feet, his tracks on the road, you can see that they're a bit bigger than his mum's now, whereas about 2 months ago they were definitely smaller. So his feet are definitely getting bigger.
Where is she? Where? That thing we can papa. As we landed there. No, I'm going to book an ampun. There won't be enough jumbo now.
Hi, Lindsay in Houston. Just Jeandré is going to zoom in on his sort of midriff, if you like, and that's going to answer your question for you. You've asked, has he eaten recently? Lindsay, I'd say he's absolutely eaten very recently. I think probably last night. And as far as I understand it, he and Shadow had a kill taken from them by some nefarious and pilfering hyenas. But you can see, Lindsay, by his belly that he has definitely eaten. I don't know what it was. I think it was probably a duiker or an impala or something like that, and that was stolen from them. Look at his belly now. There you go, Lindsay. You can see that he's eaten very well indeed, and I think that's also why he's not moving around too much now. Totally and utterly relaxed. Okay, so we've got a couple of answers to why that belly is so white. Josh, Debbie, and Pass, a couple of different answers. One being that, Josh, I think you said it's white so that perhaps the cubs can find the nipples when they're suckling. Josh, I think that's a stretch, but nothing's impossible. And then Pass and Debbie, or Pass, I think you said to reflect heat, or Debbie, you said to reflect heat, I forget exactly which. I think that's possibly one of the good reasons, in order to reflect heat off the ground that might hurt them, or that might otherwise burn them. Remember, they do live in very desert conditions in some areas, but it doesn't get that hot here that they should necessarily need that. But that's, I think, the best explanation I've heard. And then Pass, you reckon, maybe so that it blends in with the sky. Well, Pass, if most of their threat came from dwarf mongoose, I would absolutely agree with you. But because I don't think they're particularly threatened from below, I'm not sure that that's true. That said, let's think about that. Maybe when they're up in trees, that color does blend with the sky. I suppose it would, absolutely. Remember, they don't go into trees though, unless they've actually killed something. So I don't think that's the reason, but nothing is impossible. There must be a reason, though, for why they are white underneath there. One of the other possible reasons, and thank you for your answers, I really do appreciate them, and I find it so interesting listening to the different debates, because nobody truly knows the answers to half these questions. So it's really nice to have a conversation and debate about it. One of the reasons also could be that it's expensive for the animal to make that golden, beautiful leopard color that it has on the back, and maybe it just doesn't kind of warrant the extra energy expenditure, and so they just leave those bleached and black fur on the bottom. The other thing is, what we must remember, and this applies to the impalas discussion that we had and the discussion that we're having here, and of course the discussion of why zebras are black and white, when black and white to people with, or animals with eyes like ours, are extremely obvious colors, black and white are. But remember, most animals do not have eyes like ours do. They see in monotones or in few tones. So, I mean, in simple terms, they see in black and white, if you like. They don't see color like we do. And so I think that you'll find there's quite a lot that we see as obvious out here is not obvious to various other animals. So for the impala, for example, I reckon perhaps that brown color of theirs looks unobvious to their major predators, which would be lions and leopards like young Madiba here, and of course wild dog and cheetah. All the major predators will try and eat impala. So maybe that's got one of the reasons. And then maybe this leopard is black and white underneath because when they move through the grass, and maybe when they lie in the grass, maybe it isn't that obvious to somebody or something that only sees in black and white. Who knows? I really don't know. But thank you for your answers. You can hear some arrow-marked babblers calling in the background. He's looked up to listen to them. Obviously an ornithological leopard, this. It's very peaceful out here tonight. There are a couple of doves calling. But otherwise, there's really not a lot of noise at all going on around here. Oh, you seen something? The scale of this sighting, this is massive action. Oh, there we go. What you got, boy? He's seen something that he would either like to eat or that wants to eat him. You may also hear some voices. We are just next to the airstrip, which is being reconditioned, and so he may have just heard those, but they're off to his right-hand side. One of the other reasons he'll sit on a termite mound, of course, is that it offers him an excellent vantage point. He can see what's coming. Look at the incredible scapula that he's got. The scapula, the two shoulder bones there. And they are just, they're big, and they support an enormously powerful set of shoulder muscles that will form the mainstay of his sort of attack weapons when he does actually kill something large. When he's a big male, he will be fully capable of killing animals much larger than himself. Oh, shame. He's absolutely exhausted after sitting up. I think his movements are severely constrained by the lack of energy that he feels because it's so expensive for him to digest all of the meat that he eats. So I've been working for WildEarth now for since the 20th of May, so June, July, August. Oh, jeepers, it's over 3 months now. I'm a veteran. And a nice question about why or how much Madiba's eyes have changed since I met him. Well, his eyes were pretty blue when I met him, and they're now pretty green, standard adult leopard color. So they have changed quite a lot, quite a large change. They're born with blue eyes, of course, and some of them maintain those blue eyes forever, and some of them don't. Most don't. Now we had a comment about, Josh, you said that perhaps they're white on the belly because it'll help the cubs to find the nipples. I don't think that's the case, but what you do see there, Josh, is the white on the back tip of the tail, and that absolutely has a function that allows them to follow each other when they need to through thick bush. He obviously won't ever be feeding cubs, not unless he's a major biological anomaly, and that tail also serves to stop birds alarm calling. It's an amazing adaptation they have. When they're walking through the bush and birds start alarm calling, they flick that tail up, and it does seem to calm the birds down for some reason. I don't know why, how, what the mechanism is, but it does seem to calm them down, especially birds like rattling cisticolas, which tend to make a huge noise when a leopard walks past them. I think we might just try and reposition. Yes, Jeandré? We'll just try to see if we can't get around the other side of him, just for a little another different view. I do so enjoy just sitting with this fellow. And you've got to be so patient around cats, of course, because they do so little. But the more time you spend with them, of course, the more the chance of seeing some sort of anomaly in behavior that nobody's ever seen before. Let's go around this side of him. And just as a sort of recap, for those of you who perhaps don't know, oh, look at that, Jeandré. Just film this little thing here if you don't mind. Look, everybody. It's the first wisteria flower. Isn't that lovely? There are a few of them on this tree. Beautiful tree wisteria flowers just coming into bloom. Bolusanthus speciosus. Say that, Jeandré, after you've had a big night out. Won't be easy. Bolusanthus speciosus. There. Lovely purple flowers. It's not related to the wisteria creepers of northern climes. I think it's just called a tree wisteria because the flowers are very similar. Isn't that nice? Love seeing the first flowers. Just watching my inimitable cameraman who's trying to get us the best angle. Is this all right? Are you happy here? Yep. You may speak, Jeandré. I'll give you permission.
Thank you.
There you can see his eyes. They're not blue at all anymore. Maybe a little tinge of blue, but not much. Do wonder where his mother's gone. She might be quite close by, you know. Lying up in the drainage line. She's not famed for her tolerance of young. So she might just be nearby. Now, just in case you've just joined us, or perhaps you've been hiding under a rock, let me just give you a quick recap as to what's been happening in the life of this magnificent young leopard. He's forming a huge part of the narrative that we're not creating, it's being created for us at WildEarth. And he's 1 year old, as I say, so that makes him born exactly a year ago. But he's had a pretty tough time in the last little month, or the last 3 weeks or so. His mother has failed to raise 6 litters by this stage. I think it is 5 or 6 litters. Anyway, she's 9 years old, and that's unusual. She's either been very unlucky, or there's something else amiss. And I tend towards the latter. Scott definitely tends towards the former. He just thinks she's been very unlucky. And we're in the process of gathering information as to why she's lost all those litters earlier on. Now, hyenas definitely have played a part in it. Male leopards have definitely played a part. But he is a year old. Now, the normal birthing interval for a female leopard is about 18 months to 3 years. Now, she has just mated again with 2 males. And that means that if she falls pregnant now, will have a new cub or new cubs by the time that Sindile or Madiba is 15 months old. Now, that is very early, and especially as he's a male. Some of the females go independent at this age. Males in fact, almost unheard of that they should go independent at this age. That said, while she was mating for 8 or 9 days, he spent completely alone in a 2-hectare area, so in about 4.5 to 5 acres. He spent on his own, and he actually did an incredible job. We think he killed a steenbok. He definitely killed a few francolins. He never looked thin, and he always looked okay. And we wondered if she'd ever come back and fetch him, and she did. She brought him here. She obviously fed him last night. And so it's really an interesting story, and interesting to see what's going to happen with this young fellow. Tired young fellow, should I say. Yeah, I think he's definitely looking around a lot because he's seeing or he's hearing the activity on the airstrip just nearby. Anyway, everybody, I'm more than happy to sit with him for the rest of the day, but perhaps you would like us to try and find something else. So let's have a little bit of a poll on Twitter. Those who say I should stay and those who say I should go. Wrong channel. And let's decide from there. I'm more than happy to sit with him for the rest of the day. But I'm also more than happy to go and look for something else if you'd like to. Oh, look at him. He's just such a magnificent fellow. doing his stomach exercises now. Very important, of course, to keep the abs flat and working. Well done, Sindile. Jeandré was doing the same thing yesterday, as was I. Not quite as effectively as Sindile is, but we're older than him. That is a remarkable picture. We had a question today, and I think I did answer it earlier on, about how many leopards and lions there are left in this area and around here. And of course the answer is we don't know how many leopards there are. Leopards are very difficult to count because unless you see them all the time, they're so secretive that it becomes really difficult. And so while we know how many there are on the Sabi Sands, there are probably about 90 or so, we don't know how many there are in the Kruger National Park, but I think there's an extremely healthy population of them. They're brilliant generalists. An interesting question from Ramey, which I've kind of touched on, but I haven't perhaps answered, and I think that's because I don't really know why or how to answer this question. You want to know why Shadow is not around him, especially after they've just eaten. Why has she left him on his own? I don't know, Ramey. I have a suspicion that she has a biological anomaly in her. I think she came into estrus too early, and I suspect that that might have something to do with why she lost her previous litters of cubs. Yes, I'm sure luck played a part in it, but definitely she came into estrus very early. And I don't think she has a high tolerance of youngsters, and she wouldn't if she's just come into estrus. Her body will be telling her that this little fellow needs to make his own way in the world eventually. Although it's seemingly too soon for that to be happening. So Ramey, yeah, I can only think that she's just not that tolerant of him. You know, she also, though, is a brilliant hunter, and she may have decided that she needs to go off and catch something else. It's not unheard of for her to place kills in trees, and it's a quite common leopard behavior that they will stash different kills in different trees and keep a pantry, basically. All right, so we're going to stay right here with young Sindile. I believe the general consensus is that we should lurk around with him, and I'm more than happy to do that. But while he's doing nothing, let's pop across to Scott and the lions and see what's happening there, and I'll see you just a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. And not much has changed here with the Nkuhumas pride. They are still fast asleep, and no more prey have come into this general area. But we're sitting patiently, and I'm hopeful that we are going to get some action tonight. So fear not. I think in these windy conditions, I think we're going to get lucky, possibly after dark. But the fact that they have moved during the day quite some distance means that I think they are inclined to want to move more, and hopefully earlier on. I'm sure you've been having a great time with James and Madiba, and what an afternoon it is. So many big cats. It's been a while since we got lucky. We've had some tough going over the last few days, but at least today we are back on track and have some great sightings lined up for you. It's not uncommon for cats to spend the majority of their day asleep. 16 to 20 hours is their average amounts of sleep that they will have. So the fact that we did get to see them active earlier, especially during the daylight hours, was a real bonus. And really fortunate that we got to find them just before that moment of action unfolded, because had we arrived a few minutes later, this is all we would have been seeing. The youngest lioness within this pride is looking really comfortable with its head perched on a bigger lioness's back. And they're considerably more spread out than they were this morning. This morning they were all clumped right up together next to one another. And I always wonder when I do see lions sleeping why they don't kind of position themselves more spread out. If they were to fan themselves out, they would set up a natural ambush. Whereas like this, if anything were to stumble upon them, they're all so kind of close together that it would be difficult for them to encompass their prey. Oh, well. Junior's just got up and shook his head, and maybe there was a flea that was bothering him behind that ear. I see. He may have just caught the end of him with his paw up against that ear. And then straight back to sleep. I wonder what's going to happen with him. He is in a very precarious scenario. He has come of age and should technically be out on his own now. And that, coupled with the fact that the Birmingham coalition is in town, means that he could very well come unstuck if they get a hold of him on their rampage. Thankfully though, 4 of them are very far to the east of us, and the other one is much further to the north. Now, I believe we got a report from one of the viewers that apparently the missing lioness of this pride has been mating with or at least one of the Matimba males, and that certainly could be the case. Haven't heard anything. We've got a WhatsApp group where every guide in the Sabi Sands will send updates mainly on the lion movements, but also leopard to a degree, and didn't get any updates that they were seen mating this morning. So I'm not sure how credible that is, and it certainly could be true, but there's no confirmation of that. I've tried to get a hold of Craig, one of the other guys who's got access to other properties where we can't go, and can't get through to him, so not too sure, but maybe that is the case, and I hope it is the case. Although if it is, there's a strong chance if she does give birth to those cubs, if it's a successful mating, in 3 months' time they are just going to be killed by the Birmingham males as soon as they come across them, because they will know that they did not father those cubs. So even though she may be safe, the mating will probably not work out being beneficial for anyone in the end, because the Matimba males, like I say, are on a rampage, and they will kill any cubs that they did not father. No different to any of the other big cats out here. Now, while I've got you here, off the topic, but something that may interest you, yesterday we saw a scorpion early in the morning, and also got to see one yesterday evening. This was my little scorpion torch, which is a UV torch. It puts a kind of blue light. It's not very powerful, but it's a UV light. And if this was a real scorpion and I was shining on it, it would fluoresce a bright color like a glow-in-the-dark toy. Anyway, this is the scorpion that we got to see yesterday, the Opisthothalamus glabifrons. Seriously long name, and that was the one VM spotted whilst burrowing, sorting out its burrow. And you'll notice how large the pincers are, like that of a lobster or a crab, and that's a good indicator that it's not highly venomous. I will show you a highly venomous scorpion after this, so you've got an idea. Interestingly, it's eating a millipede. We'll start seeing lots of them during the summer months, but they carry cyanide within their body, And basically the only other animal that will feed on millipedes are civets. So that's one of the other few animals, along with the scorpion, that can feed on these toxic millipedes. And this often is one of the scorpion's main prey, and you'll very often see the rings, the individual ringlets that make up the body of the millipede outside scorpion burrows as they do their housekeeping and put all their old food waste outside. And then I'm just going to page over to the scorpion that we saw up in a tree last night. You didn't get a good view of it, but that one you did see the Pistocanthus asper. And interestingly enough, this picture must have been taken, well, here we go, in northern Natal, which is not where we are. It's quite far south of us, probably a couple of 100 kilometers south of where we are. And the coloration of the scorpions in that area are different here, even though the same one occurs here, it is a very different color. Then I'm going to ask Bryan just to pan across to the left to show you this scorpion here. Now look at how thin these pincers are. They're almost as thin as the legs, and not very powerful and robust. And it's scorpion that carries these very thin pincers that you need to be careful of, because the danger from them comes from the back end, a very big tail. So now you've got a good idea of the differences in pincers and how you can use them to determine how venomous the scorpion could be. We get lots of different scorpions in this area. We actually found another one by our campfire last night, which was the Europlectes vittatus. Very small scorpion, but despite its size, it is quite venomous, so you don't want to be stung by one of these. And Jeandré, one of the cameramen, spotted this one crawling around the fireplace. And they occupy all different habitats, and there are many different types in this area, hopefully a lot of which we'll be able to show you over the coming months. There are tricky customers though, and I'm hoping we're going to be able to show you some more with this UV torch, because it really is wonderful to see them. One thing I could be able to, I think there is a picture of one of them fluorescing, I just don't know where it is. So maybe take a closer look at the lion again while I try and find it. Okay, well, I can't seem to find a picture of one fluorescing in this book. I was fairly certain there was a picture of that happening, but no luck. At least I can't find it for now. So until we find some more scorpions, we'll close the scorpion discussion and get back onto the lions. Now, if any of you joined the safari very recently, there's one member of this pride missing, one of the lioness. And Sarah, age 17, in Ohio, would like to know, would the youngest lioness, if it was the youngest lioness that got separated, would she know how to reconnect with the pride and find the pride again? Yes, I think she would, but it's tricky business, because even though she could follow the scent trail of her pride, the best way for her to reunite would be to vocalize. But the problem is, if she vocalizes, she attracts attention to herself. So it's kind of, she's going to have to try and weigh up what she thinks is best, because like I say, if she vocalizes and one of the Birmingham males finds her, or another pride of lioness hear that call, that could get her into trouble. but it's not uncommon for lions to split up and rejoin, and we're not sure exactly what happened. So crossing fingers, she's a big enough lioness to be able to know the ropes, and she shouldn't have any problem reuniting with the pride if she is still alive, of course. So let's hope that she is, and who knows, maybe later on this evening we'll get to see them reunite. Take a closer look here. There's some cuddling and repositioning going on there. Cute, big stretch. Well, I'm very, very happy to hear that one of my good friends and fellow guides that I actually trained with here in the Sabi Sands is watching the show. Hey, Mombre, how you doing? He's moved to Australia now, everyone, and is missing the bush dearly. He's been gone for about 4 or 5 years now, and we had a great time training together, learning about the bush and working in the Sabi Sands. And like I say, he's missing it dearly. Thankfully, got to see him not too long ago, and he's just put forward a very good point, and he said, in these dry conditions, isn't it a good hunting option for this pride to situate themselves near the waterhole in order to hopefully ambush any predators? And of course you are right, Ben, and like you saw a little bit earlier on, they did kind of get close, or at least the plan was there to ambush prey coming to drink, but they didn't get lucky now. But I think a little bit later, with the cover of darkness, that might change things. Anyway, so happy to hear that you're watching, and I hope all is well in Australia. Take a closer look. I've mentioned that they were successful probably in the early hours of the morning making a kill, and Mauritia is interested to know what exactly did they kill, because Junior's belly didn't look that full, and you're right, Mauritia, it wasn't very evidently full, but sorry, one of the African hawk eagles that you saw earlier, in all likelihood the same one, just rocketed past us, so glad that I got to see it again, but it was just the one of them, it wasn't the pair, but they are territorial, so in all likelihood the same one. Anyway, Mauritia, it's difficult to see his stomach now because he's all curled up in a ball, but he was certainly more full-bellied than any of the other members of the pride, and I'm thinking that they killed something like an impala that he would have got the majority of. He would have completely outcompeted the rest of the pride, and probably as they were fighting over it, it would have got dismembered into lots of different parts, and he probably ran away with half of it, and the lioness fought over the scraps. But we didn't see the kill or the remains thereof. And quite often we can forget or just assume that lions may not necessarily be making kills because we don't see them with big full bellies, but that's a mistake on our behalf, because they can and will often kill smaller prey that keep them sustained between the bigger kills. So even if it's a duiker between all of them, it's a kilogram or 2 of meat each, and that keeps them going. So you don't always see them full bellied and rotund after eating buffalo. But I think they did kill an impala last night. Interesting questions just come through from Diane, and she's asked if lions kill pregnant prey, will they feed on the fetus first, along with the organs? And yes, there is a strong likelihood that will happen. Very strong likelihood that will happen, and possibly something we may get to see, as it is coming into lambing season, and already the female impala, female zebra are beginning to show signs of their pregnancy. There was quite a gruesome sighting that was had early last year, just before I joined WildEarth, when wasn't a pride of lion, but it was a pack of wild dog caught a female impala, and as they ripped her open, a fetus popped out, and it was kicking it. I mean, it was just about to be born, basically. So, quite harsh, but it is nature, and the lions can't discriminate between their prey species. They need to feed themselves and will latch onto whatever they can. As we saw earlier, it's not easy business for lion to catch their prey, as with most predators. And therefore some fairly tough sightings to watch can unfold. And it is something worth preparing yourself for, because it could happen at any stage. But I don't think it's going to be happening in the next 5 minutes, not at the rate these guys are going, but possibly later on after darkness. They'll get up and show us their skills. And there's still plenty of time for them to do that. I've just heard Craig on the radio. I'm going to ask him quickly on an update if he's heard anything about the Matimba males mating with this other lioness. Craig for Scott. No luck. But I will keep trying, and we'll be sure to ask again when I hear him come over the radio. What may be happening is that he may be flipping between different radio frequencies. Oh, maybe she's seen something. Not looking too alert. No. Although, I'm trying to look behind us, it's quite thick. Can't seem to see anything, but there's something that's getting her attention down there. Nothing too serious, though. So, as I said earlier, but I will recap again for Mavis, who's interested in finding out where the Birmingham boys are. 4 of them are to the east of us, probably about 3 miles east, and another 1 is still feeding on a buffalo kill that he chased these lion off 2 nights ago. Not last night, the night before. They were chased off by one individual Birmingham. I'm not sure exactly which one, but basically the Birminghams are split up currently. 1 north of us, probably about 2 miles to 3 miles north, and the other 4 about 3 miles to the east. So for now, this pride is in no danger of them. And I wonder what the Birmingham boys' plans will be this evening, and if they'll possibly reunite, and maybe they'll reunite here on Djuma. hard to say. And isn't it interesting how even though all 5 of them are a team, one of them goes off on his own tangents and leaves the other 4 together. It's not uncommon with coalitions, but very interesting and hard for us to understand exactly what triggers them to split up. I certainly wouldn't want to move out alone if I had been on a marauding rampage like they have been, because if he does come across one of the Matimbas, that lone male, he will have his work cut out for him. What a beautiful evening it is. A bit of a glow coming from the west. The sun is setting somewhere behind those clouds. And we've got a question through from Debbie. There's a frequently asked one, but still a very important one to answer, and that is, why are the Birmingham boys killing the lioness that they will one day possibly be reproducing with? And Debbie, we're not exactly sure what the circumstances were when they got into these fights, but quite often what can happen is lioness will stick together with their pride, and junior forms part of their pride. So maybe the Birmingham boys were going for junior and some of the lioness were trying to defend him, or they were trying to defend their kill. Not too sure. They've got no cubs that they need to stand up for, so not convinced that that would be why they would be confronting the Birmingham males. But the males, when they come through on these territorial takeovers, they're charged with hormones, testosterones, they're on a rampage, they're not thinking very clearly, their blood is pumped and they've got in a complete rage. And anything that obstructs them or tries to get in their way and stands up to them, they will attack with force, be it male, female, young or old, and that's basically what it is for me. Now, a reason why these females may stand up to them is because the males, these Birmingham males, are strangers, and they're coming into this area. It's like some person walking into your house that you don't know and kind of making himself at home or making advances on you. You're naturally going to put up your guard and try and defend yourself. But over time, once they overthrow the Matimbas and they are no longer around, the lioness will begin to understand and accept that they are now the kings and that they will be the ones that protect them and mate with them. So, interesting stuff, and there could be a lot more bloodshed and a lot more lioness could still be killed as they stamp their authority down on this area. Certainly not uncommon with males and takeovers. And let's just hope they don't kill too many. But it's a cycle, and every 5 to 8 years, generally one coalition will be kicked out by another. That's the general length of a reign of dominant males, as a rough rule. And then lion populations could become quite high towards the end of any dominant male's reign. And maybe it's just nature's way of making sure that lion populations are kept in check and are not continuing to soar into big numbers where they would eat too much food and therefore no longer have enough prey to survive themselves. Isn't that an interesting pose? Trying its best to get comfortable, or is that the best way to clean the inner paw whilst on your back? I heard some Franklin alarm calling and now a tree squirrel, and it was in the direction that the African hawk eagle headed into, so maybe it's wreaking havoc in that area. I'm not sure if you would have been able to hear that audio. The wind's blowing the audio away from us, but I'm guessing that's what caused it. Any alarm call we hear, we often wonder what it could be, and thankfully we saw that African hawk eagle flying there, so it's not necessarily a leopard approaching, but could be. And we'll be sure to call you back to this area if any action does unfold. But for now, we are going to send you back to James for an update on how Madiba is getting on this afternoon.
Hello everybody, welcome back to young Sindile, who has done very little since I last saw you. He has been lying in sweet and gentle repose upon this termite mound, where he seems to have found the ultimate in comfort for a leopard. A couple of birds have been calling while you've been gone. Some Birchall starlings, some rattling testiculars came past and shouted at him for being a leopard. Not that he can do anything about that, and that's what he told them, and so they moved off. And that's about all that's been going on. But oh, there's a Franklin calling. But it just has been very special to spend another extended period with this special little fellow. I believe also that Scott and you have been discussing the reasons behind why the Birmingham boys have been, and Matimbas even, have been killing female lions. I think it's a fascinating discussion, and I think that around the fire we've come up with one or two pretty good answers. And my version of it goes basically that the only reason for the Birmingham boys to do it would be because that they are so hyped up and their blood is up and their testosterone levels are up. They're in a natural state of heightened aggression, so that during the course of a completely normal confrontation, remember lions confront each other all the time. Males will chase females off kills, and normally the females will just move away, or if the females do show a bit of aggression back, the males might back off slightly. But that confrontation, very seldom ends up in a serious physical confrontation. Now that, of course, is going to be very different if everyone's on edge. And everyone is on edge, of course, because of this big changeover that's going on. And I suspect that what is a normal interaction between lions has now escalated into far more aggressive incidents. And I think that's probably why the lionesses have been killed. I don't believe it has necessarily an evolutionary function. I think it's a byproduct of their behavior, but who knows? I might be wrong. I am contacting. What are you looking at? He spotted something behind us. I'm looking behind us now. I can't see what it is. I really rather hope it'll be his mum coming back to say hello. Look at his magnificent face. He's such a magnificent looking animal. What you got, boy? What you see? Happy birthday to you. Join me, Jeandré.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Deb.
From Ohio. Happy birthday to you. That is a little happy birthday song for Deb in Ohio, now aged just 62. Well done, Deb. You've certainly achieved more than Jeandré and I have. We are not quite at that age of tremendous wisdom yet. And Deb, I'm not trying to remember the question that you just asked. Oh yes, you asked, has a lion or a leopard ever approached the car while I've been watching it out of curiosity, and have I ever had to sort of make a noise or shout at it or ask it politely to go away and desist from staring at me in the eyes? Deb, Once or twice. The animals that do it the most are young male leopards. They're the most inquisitive. Young male lions are also quite inquisitive, but young male leopards especially. He wasn't being particularly inquisitive. I have had a male leopard on the bonnet of my car, which was very unpleasant indeed. But yeah, that was an anomalous sort of behavior when a leopard was being chased by some wild dogs, and what he did was to leap up onto the vehicle because he was basically taking his anger out on the first thing he saw. I didn't make much noise there. I just kind of reversed, and he eventually went away. But we did have an incident not too long ago where the orange-eyed lioness of the Nkuhumas pride came up close to the vehicle. And when she did that, she came up close and suddenly her eyes locked on mine. I've never had that before. And that was a slightly scary moment. And I was seconds away from hitting the door and just breaking her concentration so that she would sort of carry on doing what she was doing. But eventually she just looked away, and that wasn't a necessity anymore. But those are the main things. On foot, young male leopards especially will come and investigate you, and very seldom with anything other than curiosity in their eyes and in their manner. And that's always quite entertaining. Hyenas, of course, will approach the vehicle a lot, especially before they're adults, to come and check what's going on. And we do sometimes hit the vehicles just to make them go away, mainly because they like to steal the oil caps on the end of the wheels. And they're very expensive to try and replace, so that's a bit of a disaster when they do that. Thanks, Deb, and happy birthday. And I believe a few more people have claimed that it is their birthday today. I'm afraid we only sing happy birthday once a day, so sorry about that. Happy birthday to all of you, but we're not singing it again, I'm afraid. Sindile would probably either regurgitate his lunch if we carried on singing, or he'd disappear over the back of the termite mound and would never see him again. But happy birthday to all of you. The light has picked up a bit. Huh? The cloud might be lifting a little. I don't think this front's going anywhere fast, I must tell you. But there's a lovely kind of goldenness to the light now. I don't know what he's looking at. I'm just going to stand up and, well, not stand up, just extend myself and have a look out the back of the vehicle. I can't see anything that he might be looking at. Let's just go around the other side of him. It might give us a slightly better view of what's going on. Gary on Twitter, I believe you're a new viewer. Wonderful to have you on board with us, and thank you for taking the time, first of all, to watch us, and secondly, to send through a question. Thank you for that. You want to know if lions and other animals are born deaf. That's quite a cloud, isn't it, Jeandré? Gary, they're not born deaf, no. They do hear, I think, probably not very well, but they certainly hear. And remember, when they're born deaf, they don't... if they're born deaf, they're certainly born blind, but the only thing that they are talking to at the time is their mothers. And by the time that they have to communicate with any other animal, what they do is that they will, sorry, I'm just watching him quickly. And what they do is that they will by the time they come out of the den and they need to talk with other animals, especially with lions, they can hear and see perfectly well. Now, if an animal is born deaf, maybe that's what you're asking, so born completely deaf and without the ability to ever regain their hearing, can they survive? Remember that while communication is a big part of what they do, their eyes and noses are incredibly powerful senses. And so for a human being, for example, our vocal communication is probably the most important part of what we do in social interactions. And I've heard it said that people who are blind have an easier time than people who are completely deaf because they can still communicate vocally. I don't know if that's true or not. I think it's a real... I have a huge admiration for anybody who has a disability like that. A leopard, of course, if it can't hear anything, is going to be disadvantaged by the fact that it can't hear when it's hunting. It can't hear its mother calling, and that would be a big thing as a youngster. If it went deaf as an older leopard, say as an independent male, I think it could survive pretty well. I don't think that, while their ears are important, their eyes and noses would probably compensate largely. I still think they'd be able to hunt. I still think that, yes, they'd probably wouldn't pick up maybe some predators coming to get them, so maybe they'd have to spend more time in trees. But I do think that what they would do absolutely is that they would compensate for that loss of hearing. I don't know that they'd survive if they were born deaf, though, because they do need to hear their mothers calling them. Maybe a lion would. I think a leopard would really struggle. Great question. Thank you, Gary. And I mean, obviously this is all postulation. I don't know the answer exactly. And as I've just said, there are a few animals, like a leopard, which is born without sight. I mean, their eyes are closed. They're not blind, but their eyes are shut. And there are lots of birds that are born blind. I don't know how deaf they are when they're born, but certainly blind. And of course, as they get older, this happens in a lot of the what we call altricial youngsters. So lots of birds, rabbits, not hares, rabbits, some of the predators like leopards and lions, and of course wild dogs and hyenas probably as well. They are born, no, hyenas are actually different, but the rest of the predators are born blind. And of course in a few weeks' time then they're able to see and their eyes open and their senses are as tremendous as they are almost as adults very quickly after they're born. I think if he wasn't quite as full as he is now, he'd probably be moving around a bit, but he's definitely not having any calls from his stomach, given how large it is. Something is arresting his attention down to the south of us. I don't know what it is, though. As you can see, he's still yawning. Exhausted little fellow. I've just seen a kudu walk past the back there. That's what he's looking at. Anyway, the kudu we are not going to try and film. It is perfectly camouflaged. I've just seen the movement, but that's what he's watching. He's watching a little herd of kudu. Right, a little bit off the topic, but not quite, because we are sitting on a termite mound. Sibusiso in Hammanskraal, you would like to know about jackalberries and if they only grow on termite mounds. For those of you who don't know, jackalberry is also known as an ebony or Diospirus mespiloformes, and they grow predominantly on drainage lines or where the water table is pretty high. So Sibusiso, no, absolutely not. They don't only grow on termite mounds at all. They grow very successfully, and they're much less termite mound specialists than a lot of the other trees we get out here, say like a weeping boerbean or a brown ivory. They love to grow on termite mounds. But it's a nice question. You also want to know if the male and the female trees produce fruit. Now remember, they're either monoecious, which means that they one tree will have both sexes, or they're dioecious, which means they'll have separate sex trees. Now, no male tree can have a fruit. So if they are monoecious, i.e. they both have they're male and female together, then that tree will have fruit. And if they're dioecious, then only the female tree will have fruit. And I don't know if I'm pretty sure that they are monoecious, at least dioecious, like marula trees, in which case only the females will have fruit. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case, though, so I'll try and find out for you. Very nice question. Thank you, Sibusiso, in Hammanskraal. That's in South Africa, everybody. Small town in South Africa. Oh, we're going to quickly nip across to Scott. There's some exciting action at the Lion Pride. I'll see you just now. Enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, and if you look very closely, there we go. Now you can see it more clearly, a hyena. And it's looking intently in the direction of these lions. One of the lioness did see the hyena, wasn't too fazed by it. And it's probably just lurking around to investigate whether there's a kill here. It came from downwind of the lion, but now it will certainly be able to smell them. I'm not sure if it will necessarily be able to see them from where it is. But let's watch what it does. Oh. Hyena in this area, especially alone, will not try and overthrow lion, especially if there's no kill to be won. But this individual is just coming to check out what was going on, and in the hope that possibly there would be some scraps or remains of a kill made by these lions, but you're not going to find anything here. And as quickly as it appeared, it is going to disappear. Well, that was at least a pleasant change of scenery for Bryan and myself. We have repositioned the vehicle, but the lions are still, as you left them, fast asleep. So take a closer look, but we do have this new angle, which you may enjoy looking at. The lioness with her head up now was the only one that saw the hyena. She appears to be the most alert out of all of them. And hopefully she'll spot something else of interest, maybe a prey item. Maybe okay, copy. Confirm we're not.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us.
Welcome back, everyone. And without a moment's notice, the Nkuhumas Pride just got up and started moving. So thankfully, we are going to hopefully be able to follow them as they continue to move south. They're not far from our southern boundary, and they've just moved into a very thick area, but we should be able to loop around and find them again. So good prospects, and happy to have you back. Apologies for the break in signal. Don't have a clue what is causing all these problems, but you've come back at the perfect time as these lines begin to move. Now we're going to try our best to not interfere in their hunting, and that way we may be turning the lights on and off intermittently, especially if they see any prey, so that's something to think about. And I'm also going to have to concentrate quite a lot on negotiating through this thick vegetation to find them again, so you're going to have to just bear with me. Oh, it's an extremely thick area, this. But I think we should be able to find a way ahead of them again. Not this way. Okay. Well, I'm glad you did get a glimpse of them, because, like I said, it's going to be very, very tricky to loop ahead of them through this thick vegetation. But don't worry, we're certainly going to keep trying. I think we may find a way through here. At least we followed them for about a minute or two before you came to us, so I do have a good idea of their general direction of movements. And what I'm thinking of doing is looping ahead onto a road and then trying to re-establish where their next move may be from there. Here we go. Looking good. We've got onto a road, so that's a good start. It'll be wonderful if they've decided to get onto this road and then use it as a pathway to come towards us. Which is what I'm guessing they will do. Come on, Nkuhumas pride. Please may you not have disappeared after only following them for a very, very brief moment. Use the spotlights and hopefully that'll help us find them. Their eyes will reflect very, very brightly. If the torch shines over them, so that will help us. And torch is a word we use here in South Africa. In America, I'm told you prefer to use the word flashlight. So don't be confused if you hear me saying torch every now and then. What I'm trying to also do is, as I'm shining from side to side, also check the road every now and then for any tracks of where they may have already crossed this road. Surely not. Surely not so soon. Just as they got mobile, we've been waiting the whole afternoon in the hope that we could follow them on the move. But sadly, they decided to go through such a thick area that we were forced to loop around. And it's not looking too promising from the outset. Saw a fallen down log there, and it got me excited. I thought it could have been the lions. I haven't managed to see any of their tracks, but I could well have missed them as I'm looking up where the spotlight's shining a lot of the time as well. They should have popped out somewhere around here. What you do find from time to time is when lions do get active is that they will move a few hundred meters and then lie down again. So I'm hoping they haven't done that in this thick bush. Another likely reality that they may have done is that they may be actually stalking something, or they may have found some potential prey, and they will take their time usually in the evening, more so than during the day. Like we saw earlier when the one lioness really did blunder that one opportunity when the impala came down to the waterhole to drink. Oh, lions. Thinking of going a little bit further up this road and then turning around and heading back in the direction that we came in, as they may still have been working their way through this block and may not have reached this road that we got onto just yet. But I just want to check a little bit further. Interestingly enough, the Birmingham coalition made a kill just over to the left here in December. And that was the third buffalo they killed within 48 hours. Just off to our left. That's a happy memory of lion in this area. And maybe the Nkuhumas pride will come back into this area and also make a kill. Wouldn't that be great? Last night we were lucky enough to find a snake crossing the road. It would be wonderful if that happened again, but we don't see as many snakes as we would like to, Archie. Even though there are lots around, they tend to slither off before we can see them. But last night we got lucky, and maybe it was the windy conditions that helped muffle our approach and not scare the snake away. It looked like a brown house snake to me, non-venomous. Okay, time to turn around. I see some eyes flickering up ahead there, so let's maybe just shoot up there and have a quick look. of some other animals, but worth checking up on. to the Mapocho Coalition, which is a coalition that I got to see at the start of my guiding career in the south of the Sabi Sands. And I guess they are quite similar. The Mapocho were 6 strong initially, whereas the Birmingham males are only 5. And the Mapocho killed probably somewhere between 30 and 40 lion. They were on a huge rampage when they established themselves as dominant in the area. And I guess the Birmingham boys are just starting to do that, Charlie, and will in all likelihood create similar chaos in the coming months. But only time will tell, and who knows, maybe they'll maybe the Matimbas will find the lone male when they split up from time to time, one of their strengths. And if they continue to keep splitting up, they could continue to lose other members of their coalition. Bryan's also got his flashlight out now in the hope that he might be able to aid in this search, so thanks, Bryan. I've just seen a game viewer drive past, so they're obviously nowhere to the questions come through, not on the topic of lion, but still an interesting topic, and that's from Daryl. He's interested to know what animals can we expect to see in spring and summer in the coming months. It's going to change a lot, both in terms of the animals we see, but also in terms of the vegetation and scenery. It's going to become much thicker and greener. It's incredible how lush this area becomes in such a short space of time. So that's something to look forward to. And a whole host of insects, arachnids, reptiles, lizards, snakes, tortoises. There'll even be changes in the general game. You'll probably see a lot more wildebeest, zebra, at least we did in the last summer months. A lot of babies. It's the birthing season, the lambing season for a lot of the herbivores. So that's something we can look forward to. For me, that's mainly the smaller critters, the little bugs and insects that come in multitude. Dung beetles are a wonderful animal that we'll get to show you. They roll up balls of dung that they lay their eggs in and then bury, and we'll get to see them battling it out. It's quite a difficult business. There's a lot of zebra running straight towards us. I'm just going to kill the lights so that and I'm sure the lion's after them. The lion just came right here in front of us. Look at all the dust. There was a lioness right behind it. And I'm just gonna... I think they may have got one. I think they've got one. I can hear a lot of audio inside this bush. Hold on, everyone. I just had to kill my lights. I didn't want to blind the zebra. And if I had have, that lion maybe would have caught one. So it was the right thing to do to switch off the lights, even though you couldn't see anything. Apologies for that. I'm just going to have to concentrate. I'm fairly certain I got one of these zebra. I'm just going to drive a bit further into this bush and then switch off and listen for the audio. They'll be fighting over the kill. Let me actually just switch off right now. I thought I heard a growl as I switched off. Yeah. There was another zebra alarm call. Yeah, they've got one in there, I think. Unless they're still chasing them around wildly. Got audio of one in distress. so thick in here. Still there, Brian? Good, hold on, holes. The zebra can be quite a difficult animal for the lion to kill, so that's why we may still be hearing the distress calls coming from one that they may have captured but not yet killed. Where are you? We're getting closer. The zebra's still alarm calling, so they're probably still trying to kill it if they have in fact caught it, which I think they have. Little bump. Just want to stop and listen again. Another zebra alarm call there. I think that was the lion fighting over the kill there, Brian. Did you hear that? Yeah, okay, so there's somewhere in here. It's just so thick, everyone, but don't go anywhere. We probably will be extending this broadcast until we at least find out what's gone on. So don't worry, and if you had plans, best you change them. This turtle is short. Believe it. I'm just going to try to get a little bit closer to where I heard that lion growl come from, and then we'll switch off and listen for more audio. In this thick bush, listening is going to be probably the best way for us to relocate. Yeah, through there. See, I think that's just the zebra. That's still alarming. Okay, we got them here, We're nearly there, guys. We're nearly there. You can hear the lions growling and they'll be fighting with one another and competing to try to get onto the best spot. Yes, we've got them. They're right here. Shame you can hear the other zebra still distress calling off in the distance. This is a youngster that they caught. I just need to get onto the radio quickly and let everyone know that this has happened, and if anyone's nearby they can hopefully come and join us here. Stations, the Nkuhumas just made a bumbo that they've got a Mampimpan Mangwa. We are west of Shabam and north of Gari Main in the block. I'm not sure exactly where, but I can help you get you if need be. Nampimpa mangwa. Makulu. This is the first time in all the months that I've been here that I've actually seen this pride competing over a small kill. And isn't it fascinating how they could be so friendly and affectionate with one another earlier, yet now, come time to feed, things change drastically. And it gives you an idea of how important food is out here. And they will even fight their own pride members for it. Now, I know this would usually be the end of the broadcast or the safari, but we certainly aren't going to be going anywhere for the time being, so get comfortable. Because this is something we don't get to see very often at all. Now Junior's got himself positioned in the best possible spot for now, and he'll be consuming most of the organs, which are easy to feed on. But once he finishes that, he may want to reposition to another point of the carcass, and that's when we could expect to see some more aggression between this pride. As the meat becomes less, their will to try and feed on more will cause them to fight with one another and jostle for new positions. remarkable how quickly they are making their way through this carcass. It gives you a very good idea of how powerful their jaws are and how sharp their teeth are, in order for them to be able to process this amount of meat in such a short period of time. I think things are going to start heating up now between this pride. And what we may find is that some members may actually tear off some parts of this small zebra and run away with it. And if any of you are battling to watch this and feeling extremely sorry for the zebra, yes, of course, this zebra was unfortunate. But it is critical for these lions to kill in order to feed themselves. So just keep reminding yourself of that. Of course, it was unfortunate for the zebra, but a necessity for these lions to survive. Like I said earlier, in all my time here, the only live kill that we've managed to capture with this specific pride was them taking down a Cape buffalo. And that was with Brent not too long ago, but I've never seen them catch a smaller prey item. And this is the closest we've come to seeing them bring one down. And I am already interested at how relaxed Junior is. He seems to be minding his own business on the periphery. And I really did expect different behavior from him. I thought he would be more of a bully at the kill. But that could still happen. You can probably still hear the zebra's mother in all likelihood calling out in search of it. This herd of zebra would have been chased by lions many times, and so would have this foal. And quite often in the chase they may split up, and now she's desperately trying to call her foal back. But sadly this time they will not be reuniting. It looks like this lioness is just trying to take a breather while securing a big chunk of meat that she'd like to feed on when she has a break. It's an incredibly tiring business, not only catching their prey, but feeding on it so quickly. And look at her, she's just taking a time out. But she's latched securely onto a portion of the zebra that she doesn't want to let go for the others. There we go, that's a bit more of the behavior I was expecting. So tired. They cannot continue the fight for that extra last piece of meat, which is mainly the head. And listen to Junior panting. The lioness is latched firmly onto her share of the kill, but I'm not sure if she's going to be able to hold on to it much longer, because it looks like Junior's got his breath back. It was probably the right decision on her behalf. Now it looks like the two lionesses at the back are beginning to have a bit of a scrap. Listen to how powerful their jaws are as they crunch through the bone. Looks like Junior needs to get his breath back again. And I think what he may do next is try and move off with the remains he's got. The problem is the hide is still connected to other parts of the kill the other lioness are latched onto. So that's one lioness taking off her little bit to feed on in peace. Clever move. I'm just keeping a lookout around to see if there's any hyena lurking on the periphery of our shadows, because I'm sure some of them would have either heard this commotion or possibly by now smelt it. The wind has died down though, and these lions made the kill at the perfect time when the wind was still in their favor. It would have muffled their approach, but it has turned into a dead still evening. What Well, everyone, like I said, I know that may have been quite difficult for some of you to understand and to watch, and it is unfortunate for that zebra, of course it is, but essential for the well-being of this pride. They need to keep making kills, keeping themselves well fed, and keeping themselves in good shape, especially with what's going on now with the Birmingham boys being around. They need to be in tip-top shape in order to be ready for any onslaught that they could get from this coalition that's marauding through the area. And like I say, another thing is that we very, very seldom actually get to witness this and be around events like this. So we're very fortunate to be able to have witnessed this interesting behavior. I've never witnessed the Nkuhumas Pride in a scenario quite like this. So for me, it's a very big highlight and a special sighting to remember. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Sorry about all the wild bushwhacking to get you. And eventually, thankfully, we did. And thanks for sticking around for those of you who have stayed on during the extra broadcast this afternoon. Well done, Bryan.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks very much. And thanks to Louise for directing the show, and for Tara and Nikki for lending her a hand. We'll give you one last view for a moment or two of the pride as they finish off their kill, and we'll certainly do our best to try and find them again in the morning. Enjoy the last views. Thanks for following. It's Brent and Jamie out tomorrow. They're back from leave, so you'll have some new faces on safari, and they are so happy to be back. So that's also something that a lot of you will be thrilled about, because I'm sure you guys have had enough of James and myself for the time being. Anyway, take one last look at the lions, and then we're going to call it a day and see you in the morning.